Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 3. And today I'm going to be giving you part 25 of What If Naruto Had the Ultimate Nature Bloodline. Remember to get this one to 100 like as usual, share this to all of your friends in social media platform, and also guys, go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto Became the Shadow of Konoha over on Anime King and enjoy that guys. And I also post a brand new episode over on Anime King 2 of What If Naruto Became Next Avatar, so go ahead and check out that and enjoy. And remember, for anyone this is the first time you hear my voice, yes, you heard that correctly. You are not mistaken, I indeed have 3 channels, Anime King 2, Anime King 3, which I post What If on every single day for you guys to enjoy. So go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for your help and support, and yeah, without further ado, what is to begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last time we left off, Harrison and Minato was currently looking over the map of the elemental nation, judging the best parts for the stone and Kumo to attack them. There were several areas, but the main part that the stone will try to go through was the hidden ring. Judging that Naruto, Menma, and Jiraiya was currently on a mission there, Harrison was worried, although Minato was fully confident that he could handle the mission there. Meanwhile, the hidden ring, as Naruto and Menma were sent sailing away, as they were attacked by the repulsive attack. They then split apart. Konan went after Menma to stop him from getting away. Jiraiya was currently trapped inside the barrier, along with Naruto's 4 clones, who were all standing still. They were gathering nature energy, as Naruto took on the 6 paths of pain. As he didn't hesitate to move in, their attacks, their techniques were rather tricky. But Naruto was a smart person, as Nagato came to realize that Konan had came crashing back down as she was injured, bleeding from her shoulder, and her top clothing of the Akatsuki was ripped as Menma came back. The attack then ensued as the 2 boys took on the remaining paths of pain. Nagato quickly realized that his path stood absolutely no chance, as they were able to use a final Rasengan, a calibration Rasengan with all of the natures combined. It was powerful. The explosion had gathered the ranged shinobi as they started making their way. But Naruto had already accounted for that as they made their way towards where the real pain was, as Konan was inside Nagato. Narrowed his eyes towards them as Jiraiya tried to bring peace. He tried to find a way that they could have peace, but Naruto knew that this man would not go for peace. As Menma had knocked Konan away and placed a seal on her, as Naruto moved in and drove his blade right through Nagato, he did not hesitate. He pulled his blade and sliced the man's head clean off. The ranged shinobi finally arrived as Naruto activated his explosion release. They were blown to pieces. There couldn't be any evidence of them being here. After all, they didn't want the rain to join into something that would just make it a lot more complicated. And they also exploded the tower after they left, with the unconscious Konan and the severed head of Nagato that Naruto sealed away. Later that night, as they had made camp in the woods, they couldn't just run all the way back to Konoha. At least they were a far distance away now, and they could catch their breath as Konan woke up. She didn't see the point of being alive anymore. Nagato was gone, Yaiko died a long time ago. As she wanted Jiraiya to do something for her, as her sensei, if he still cared. And that was to end her misery. But he wouldn't do that. He could do something. He wouldn't feel her like how he felt her in the past. Meanwhile, Zetsu had made his way towards where the masked man was, and told him that he had some bad news. So yeah guys, that was basically as we left off. You guys can switch across the place, check it out for yourself. So what is to begin this new episode? 3 figures dashed through the tree branch. One of them, with white long hair, was carrying something. It was none other than Konan, as Jiraiya was carrying her back towards the hidden leaf. Menma and Naruto were also hopping from tree branch to tree branch. Somehow Conan was able to fall asleep. Maybe it was the mental stress of it all. As they moved, she was still asleep, probably faking or not. But there wasn't any point of her trying to escape because the seal on her body prevented her from holding any shocker. As the three of them made their way through the trees, they did not utter a single word. They had already made their way through the border as they were currently in the land of fire, when suddenly Naruto saw something up ahead. As he stopped, the other two didn't stop as well, as Mainman narrowed his eyes. A swirling vortex appeared out of nowhere, as someone touched down on a tree branch. "Who the hell is this?" Jiraiya said, as he saw the feet. Then he saw the clothing, the Akatsuki clothing, and then he saw the mask. Jiraiya instantly remembered the description of what the boys had given to the last remaining member that took away Mito. Kisame was already dead. Orochimaru was already dead. This man was the last one. Jiraiya blinked as he missed it, as Naruto was gone. The sword sliced right through the masked man, passing through his body. "As fast as ever, I see," the masked man muttered, as Naruto looked towards his mask, right in the eye hole of the mask. As Naruto saw it, at that very moment, the ear started to twist, as Naruto was being pulled inside. But Naruto substituted with a log. Something hit against the log, as the explosive tag went off, obliterating the trees. As Naruto touched down, the masked man came out of the ground like a ghost. "I'm afraid your attacks won't work," he said, as Naruto stood there unmoving. As Menma appeared by his side, Jiraiya stood a bit back, with Conan over his shoulder. "I was correct then," he said. "So you were the ones that indeed took down Nagato." "I was able to find the charred remains of his body, but his head was missing. Being the person you are, I knew that you wouldn't hesitate to take his head. But I'm afraid you will have to hand that over to me." As Naruto said nothing. "Like hell we will," said Menma. As the masked man looked towards them, the ominous aura coming from him. "I'm afraid this is not a request. You have been an hindrance from day one. I guess I killed the wrong person that field that day. I should have killed all three of you, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now." As Menma clenched his fist so tight, blood was leaking from his palm. But Naruto, strangely, was quiet as he looked towards the masked man. "What?" "I have nothing to say," the masked man asked, as he noticed that Naruto was too quiet. As Naruto stood there, his eyes peering towards that mask, but yet he said nothing. The masked man narrowed his eyes. "When the time is right, I will come for what I want. Not in these unfavorable situations. Just you and me, man to man, discussing our options," he said, looking directly at Naruto. "And remember, it won't be a request. And you do have another little sister in the village. It would be a shame if she was taken away from you. We will talk soon, Naruto Uzumaki." As he sucked himself away in his swirling vortex, he was gone. "So he finally shows himself, huh?" said Jiraiya. As he looked towards Menma. "We'll get him," he said. "He can't hide forever." Menma turned his head towards Naruto, who still hadn't said a single word. As Naruto then started to move off, he was heading towards the direction of the village. As Menma caught up with him. "You okay?" said Menma. But Naruto did not answer him. He just kept on moving. Time skip. They finally returned back to the village, non-stop running as they passed through Land of Fire. Conan was handed over towards the IT department. It was nighttime. Minato was currently in his office with Jiraiya and Menma. As Minato knew that something was wrong, Menma looked angry. The seething rage of seeing that mask again, that man who was trying to threaten Katsumi. Menma was pissed off. "What happened?" said Minato. Jiraiya was the one to tell him what happened, until up to the end. "You saw him," said Minato. As Menma nodded, The eyes that Nagato possess, the Rinnegan, they're quite rare, aren't they? Minato nodded at that. He wants them, and he's even gone as far to threaten Katsumi's life. Minato clenched his fists. That man had took Mito away from him, and he has been hiding ever since. Why, isn't Naruto here? Asked Minato. He told us that we could handle the debriefing. That was all that he said. Minato made a mental note to go and talk to his son tomorrow, after he cooled down. There has been a few incidents in the past. One of them mentioned in this masked man. There was rumors, and Naruto had found a bunch of missing names. Well, they were looking for him. They were hired by this masked man to test him. They bluntly told Naruto that they were here because of him, and the man who hired them. Minato remembered clearly what happened. Naruto had went on a mission with an Inazaka and a Aburami, tracking capabilities he needed them. From that day, those two members never want to work with Naruto again. They was killing people, and they was what Naruto did. Both members had to visit Inoichi to go through a psychiatric evaluation. It wasn't pretty. The things that Naruto did had shaken the two men, shaking them to their very core, to the point where they need to go towards Inoichi to have themselves checked out, as they start to be plagued with nightmares of what happened that day. Minato was sure that Naruto didn't do anything bad in the village, but he needed time to cool down. In these moments, you couldn't be talking to him. He doesn't want to talk. Minato looked towards Menma. He had to be there for his other son as well, as he was there that night as well. He also witnessed everything. Meanwhile, as Naruto stood on top of the monument, he stood on top of Sekonokage's head as he looked down towards the village. Inside his mindscape, Kurama was looking around. The field had turned dark ever since giving him this free roaming area where he was allowed to move up and down. Kurama had preferred this than being stuck behind the bars, but the seal was still there. But this was better than being stuck behind the bars. He watched as the sky turn pitch black. He could feel the turmoil that Naruto was going through, but Naruto did not want to talk. He was silent. He didn't utter a single word as he stood on top of the monument. His eyes were flashing dangerously. The colors in them just seemed to ignite. They somehow illuminated darkness. A festering hatred that has been bottled up inside of him. Seeing that man again, it was coming to the surface. As Naruto's hands were leaking blood, his nails digging into his palm so badly. As he stood there unmoving, unflinching, as the cold winds hit his skin. His eyes set down towards the village. All he was seeing was red. This was not normal anger, having his emotions being kept away. But now, nothing but absolute rage, death, destruction, chaos was coming out. No love, no happiness, nothing but rage. The man had brought up at the past, and now he threatened Katsumi, his beloved sister Katsumi, after what he took from him, as Naruto was seeing red all around him. The hatred threatened to consume his heart. His eyes were shining so brightly that the top of the monument could be seen in full view. Something was happening, but he didn't notice that. Colorful markings started to spread down into his face, coming from his eyes. A silver aura, spread from his body. It surrounded him like a blanket. As he stood there, looking down towards the village, the rage, the anger just seemed to fester even more. He needed to work this off, and there was only one place that he can go. As he made his way. Time skip. About an hour later, Uncle Midarashi was always in the forest of death. This place was like a second home to her. Sometimes she even sleep here at the tower. She had just came back from a long mission, and she figured that she would just get some rest here. She was surprised though when she saw a trail of body, all kind of creatures, going towards the center of the forest. When Anko arrived, she saw bodies were littered everywhere, but they were not just killed. The animals, they were ripped apart. It seemed like some wild, bigger animal had grabbed them and torn them to pieces. This couldn't be the work of a ninja. This was demonic, chaotic. This was psychotic. As Uncle made her way, whatever did this, clearly, wanted just to vent out its anger. But she's never seen a beast done this before, so she was quite off-put by the sight. As limbs were everywhere, heads, feet. It was then that she arrived towards a pile-up of corpses, at least 100 spiders, scattered around the area, and someone was sitting on a large stump of dead spiders. His hands were coated in spider blood. His eyes, glistening in the darkness, made him look like an ominous beast. The aura coming from him scared away every other animal. The place was a wreck. The people of the village were lucky that this place was far away from them, or they would hear this chaos. Trees were uprooted. The ground was decimated. As she saw him right there, Uncle instantly recognized who it was. Well, after that night that she had spent with him, it was hard to forget. But there wasn't anything, romantic between them. It was just a wild, passionate night, which she enjoyed very much. She hadn't seen any more of him back at the bars, so she counted her losses. But no, there he was. As she looked around at the massacre that just committed, everyone knew at night the animal were the wildest in here, but yet, it seems like he wiped out the entire nest of spiders. As Naruto got to his feet, he walked towards her. For a moment, Uncle felt fear, as his cold eyes, but he walked past her without saying a word, and he just left. She felt like she could breathe normally again. What the hell? She was Uncle Midarashi. She don't freeze up like this. As she glanced towards his back, but he was already gone in the darkness. The next morning, Naruto found himself in an empty field. There was many trees over to the far side, and rocks, but where he was, the place was empty. He was confused. This must be a dream as he looked around. He heard laughter. Laughter of a child as he made his way. He didn't know where he was. This had to be a dream. He remembered going to sleep last night after venting out his frustration on what happened. He saw something whip past him as he turned, but the thing was already gone, whatever it was. He made his way. As he entered the foliage, he then saw someone moving. The person ran when they saw him. "Hey wait," said Naruto, as he ran after the person. Eventually, he cornered the person as he came to a stop. To his surprise, it was him. It was a younger version of him. He was crying, and at the same time laughing, conflicted on which emotions to give out. But then he turned into full tears as he backed away from Naruto. "I'm not gonna hurt you," said Naruto as he reached forward. He then saw his hand. As he saw his hand were coated in blood, he then saw his reflection, just standing there, looking at him. He waved his hand as his hand waved. It was his reflection. His entire body was drenched in blood. His teeth were elongated. His hands, his fingernails that turned to claw. There was pieces of flesh all over him. As he looked around, he was surrounded by dead bodies. "You're a monster." He looked down towards his younger self that spoke. "You can't stay like this. You can't be a monster forever," he screamed at him. "It wasn't your fault. You need to forgive yourself," he said. As Naruto looked towards his younger self, that was still crying in fear. "Please forgive yourself." "No. No!" his younger self screamed as Naruto was confused. The next thing he knew, he watched as he stabbed his own self, right into his heart with a blade. His younger self looked down towards the blade. How could you, he said, as he coughed up blood before he fell. Naruto watched as everything went black. Darkness filled the entire area. The sky turned pitch black. The grassy field turned to ashes. All he saw was bodies. Hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of bodies lying on the desert field. Death and destruction as he saw the hands of the Shinigami raised from the earth. As he saw the Shinigami itself rise up from the ground. But the face of the Shinigami was one of his. He was different though. His hair was white and long, but the facial features were the same. The whisker marks were still there. The Shinigami him looked around as it cackled in glee and soaked in the darkness around it. Naruto opened his eyes. He wasn't frightened. He did not jump out of bed as he opened his eyes. Strangely enough, his body felt calm, collected, cool. He wasn't surprised, he wasn't shocked. Something felt different. He felt different than how he felt in the past few days. Something felt different, but he couldn't tell what it was. As he pulled himself out of bed, as he stepped towards the mirror, looking at his face, he remembered the dream down to the last detail. He did not understand what it meant, or what it was, but it didn't seem like something good. You finally done blowing off some steam? The voice of Kurama popped into his head. Yes, said Naruto, as he answered in one syllable. He's gonna get what's coming to him. It's good that you didn't snap and do something stupid. Even I was worried there a bit. Seems like you had went fully psychopathic. Is that so? Said Naruto. Yes. Sometimes you can be a rather scary human, said Kurama. Huh, am I? Said Naruto. You're just screwing me, no right? Said Kurama. Oh, I'm not, said Naruto. I'm merely asking. As he went to get a shower. He had showered last night, as he had came home drenched in blood, but yet his skin felt raw. Like he had just been attacked several times. Like he's been through a vicious battle. He stepped in the shower as the water washed down his skin. After he was finished, there was a knock on his door. As he paused, he was wearing a towel around his waist, as he had one of them in his hair. He was really thinking about cutting his hair. His long hair was becoming a hassle now. Well, mostly when he had to wash it. It wasn't a problem sometimes, but sometimes he just couldn't bother. Huh, perhaps that made him lazy, he thought to himself. He went and opened the door, not really having that much modesty. As he came face to face with Sesame, who blushed instantly as she saw his well-toned chest, the fresh water still dripping off of him. Naruto, she said, trying to look away. Would you mind getting dressed? There's something I want to talk to you about. He simply nodded as he lowered to step inside. She locked the door behind her as he made his way towards his room. She took a breath. That was not what she expected and come to greet him, as her cheeks were still red. She cooled herself though. She was not some shy, stupid fangirl to be bouncing around like this. A moment later, Naruto came back. Is it important? He asked. What? You have something else to do? She asked. No, not really. Then what is it? Are you trying to blow me off? She said to him. No. Then what is it? She asked. Sorry, he said. Wait, so you really had nothing to do? So you were just trying to blow me off, huh? She said. No, that's not it. Then what is it? She asked him. Nothing for you to worry about. Come on. Don't start acting like this, she said. I was gonna go to the memorial stone, he said to her. Oh. And now she felt bad for prying. He just wanted to go and visit his sister. Oh, okay then, she said. I'll come by later. What did you want to talk about? He asked. Oh, don't worry about it. It's not that important. I'll see you later, okay? She said, as she left. She didn't give him a chance to say anything. As Naruto stood there, his black t-shirt, his black pants. As he got his sandal, he made his way. He hopped from rooftop to rooftop until he finally arrived. As Naruto came to a stop, there was fresh flowers at her grave. Seems that Menma, or his father, had been here recently. As Naruto stooped down, "Sorry, I forgot to bring you some flowers," said Naruto. "I hope you can forgive me for that," he said. A small smile came on his face as he sat down. "I've been here many times before, talking about meaningless things that has happened. But I never took my chance to listen to you. It might sound ridiculous. You might even be laughing at me where I am, thinking how stupid I am. But I really miss you, Mito," he said. As his smile on his face faltered a bit. "I'm sorry. But even with all my powers back then, I wasn't able to save you. For you to be here to meet your baby sister. For you to grow up and have a wonderful life. I'm really sorry," he said. As Naruto felt something drop on his hand, he looked down as he saw it was water. As he looked up, rain was probably coming. "Recently, the masked man has shown himself to me. I almost lost myself into anger. Seems like some of my emotions coming back, but it's just pure anger. I still feel no love or happiness. But the rage inside me is still fueling my actions. And I want you to know this time, I won't fail. I will find him, and he will suffer. He will pay for what he did. That I promise to you. He's the only one left." As Naruto placed a hand on her memorial stone, "It's just a matter of time," he said. "I hope you're happy wherever you are." As Naruto smiled. Time skip. Naruto stood in front of Kakashi. As the both of them were standing in front of Training Ground 7. "Yes, I remember that mission," said Kakashi, as Naruto had brought up back one of their missions from the past. "You remember that ability that you use with your eye?" "You mean my Sharingan?" "Yes, the Mangekyou," said Naruto. "That technique. It puts you out of commission for quite a long time after you exhaust yourself." "Well, it took a lot of chakra," said Kakashi. "Would you mind demonstrating it once again for me to see something?" "What's up?" said Kakashi. "Just a speculation I'm going on. Would you please?" said Naruto. Kakashi shrugged, not seeing a big deal. He lifted up his headband. He was also curious though, why Naruto wants to see it again. As his eyes then switched towards the Mangekyou, he looked over towards a nearby broken branch. "Kamui," he said. Naruto watched as the ear in front of it twist and twirl, and it was gone. As Kakashi's eye reverted back to the normal Sharingan, he covered it. "That good enough?" he asked. "Yes," said Naruto. "I'm gonna ask you something about your past. Something personal. But I need to know." "What's that?" said Kakashi. As this seemed like it was getting a lot serious than he thought. "The person that gave you that eye. Did you find his body after the attack was finished?" "My friend, Obito." "Unfortunately not," said Kakashi. "The entire place was caved in." "What's going on?" Kakashi asked. "It's just a speculation." "A speculation about what?" "Nothing that will concern you at the moment," said Naruto. "But before I go, does that wormhole lead to anywhere?" "Well, I'm currently not sure," said Kakashi. "But what are you working on?" he asked. "I'll let you know if I find out something." As Naruto was gone, Kakashi blinked in confusion. Find out something about what? Kakashi thought. Time skip. He had promised. After a full day of taking his sister around to have fun, she was currently in his arms. As he was holding her, as he stood on top of the monument, her favorite place to be with her brother. As she looked down. "Today was awesome," said Katsumi. I'm glad you had a wonderful time, said Naruto. You're kidding? It was so awesome, she said. As her smile didn't falter a bit. I want to ask you something. You're not like mother or father or Menma. You always tell me the truth and you don't hesitate. That's why I love you so much, she said. So don't lie to me now, okay? As Naruto nodded. There's a war coming. That is right. Correct, she said. Who told you that? I've heard people talking. So it's true, isn't it? Yes, said Naruto. You're gonna participate, aren't you? As Naruto nodded. Are you gonna get hurt, she said. War is a very dangerous thing, he said. Are you gonna get hurt, she asked. Is Menma gonna get hurt? Father, mother, are they gonna get hurt? Your mother will be here with you, said Naruto. Even if she had wanted to go, I won't let her. Katsumi blinked. But she's your mother. She's the one that tell you what to do. Well, not in this case. She has to stay here to look after you, so I'll forbid her from going anywhere. But Mom will just tie you up with her chains. She can try. As Katsumi laughed. That is why Mom said you're so rebellious. Huh, I guess she's right, said Naruto. As Katsumi's smirk turned back into a frown. Is everyone gonna be okay, she asked. I don't want you guys to get hurt. I don't want to lose any of you. You told me about the big sister that I could have had, that passed away, and I don't want the same to happen. So can you promise me that you will come back okay and safe, she asked. Menma, all of you. As Naruto looked her deep in the eyes. Katsumi, I will do my best to keep everyone safe out there. I'll keep Menma safe, I'll keep father safe. It doesn't matter what the enemy throws at us. I'll make sure that we come back to you. You promise, she asked. Have I ever lied to you before? No, she said. As a smile came on her face, a smile of relief, as she hugged him. I love you, big brother, she said. I love you too, said Naruto. Time skip. Oniki stood as Kitsaki came in front of him. Mission accomplished, Kitsaki said. As Oniki smiled at that, how many casualty? Oniki asked. Just a few. Something happened there before we arrived. The in-ring was in all disarray. There was no formation amongst their ranks. We were easily able to subjugate the village. So now our troops can have the supplies that they need to move on. To take the Fire Nation as a whole. Oniki smirked at that. They were able to get the hidden ring under their control. And now they could move through it willingly. It was known for the Raikage to circle around, so they can attack Konoha from the rear. The Sand was still a major player in this, because Kumo had to get past the Sand by going around. Well, the Raikage had sent out 2,000 of his troops to break the front line defenses as best as possible. Oniki did not know where the 8 or the 2-tail were, as the Raikage did not trust him one bit, given his past stunt. Oniki wouldn't trust himself either, but still, he was pissed off. He had no tail beasts in this war. Although, they did have other, well, allies. An enemy of my enemy is my friend after all. And the Akatsuki was their friend in this whole ordeal. That is why, Konoha the Sand, they will fall. And once that was done, Kiri was next. Oniki had already spoken to the masked man, secretively, from the Raikage. And with his support, he shall take over Kumo as well. And all the masked man wanted in return was aid from his village in his cause every now and then. The man didn't say exactly what he wanted, but Oniki did not care, because once this was over, he was going to use his forces once they were able to move once again to slaughter that masked man. And his reanimations that he had, they were quite powerful indeed, but they could be sealed away. Konoha and the Sand won't know what hit them. As Oniki made his way off, the war begins now. They will first attack Konoha. They won't let Konoha get the upper hand on them. Meanwhile that was going on, In a dark cave, always secretive as usual, was Kabuto Yakushi. He was no longer a lackey, he was now his own person. He was now a big player in this war, and he was excited to see how things were gonna go. But first, to observe, and then engage. Meanwhile, in Konoha's secret connection point stood Minato. He was joined by Shikaku. There was a few others in there as well, including Jiraiya, and there was also Hiruzen in there as well. And Naruto was standing there as well. Inoichi was currently in contact with the front lines. From the sand, it seems like Kumo is coming into it strong. Roughly 2,000 is currently heading towards the sand. Our report suggested that the stone has made their way through the hidden rain. They're trying to box us in. We can't allow that to happen, said Minato. Doesn't matter what happened, we can't allow them to get anywhere in the Fire Country. As the others nod in agreement to that. Meanwhile, on the sea, Kurosaki was currently being followed by several ships as she was on the main ship going towards the land of fire. They were taking the sea to move through the land of wave to get to Konoha. This was where they knew where Kiri Alliance was. As they waited, passing through the sea, they were not being attacked by any Kiri ninjas, even though they were awfully close to their borders. But no ninjas came out to attack them, as she smirked at that. She was the one in charge of this force. She would lead them straight in towards the Fire Country. The moment they got a stronghold on the Fire Country, it was done. That is all that they wanted, to get inside the Fire Country and put everything at disarray. Her plan, her meeting with the Earth Daimyo and her grandfather. She was given the special mission of assassinating the Fire Country Daimyo. In doing so, many things would be shifted in this war. If she could take out the man's entire family, well, the guarantee of the stone winning was up by a lot of percentage. They might not have their tail beasts, but they still had a large force, and not to mention 8 from the Akatsuki. She didn't count much on them, but still, she would not fail her grandfather this time. She had promised that she would go into the exam and kill those 2 boys, but because of her failure, now they were lacking Jinchurikis. But it does not matter, they would win this. They will not lose. Meanwhile, back at Konoha, as Sasuke got himself ready, he took a breath as he exited the house, only to see Itachi outside. Big brother Itachi, he said. Itachi turned towards his younger brother. So this is it. War, he said. It's finally upon us. Despite the odds, I believe we can do this. Menma, Naruto, they have faith that we can do this 100%, said Sasuke. And whenever they put their mind towards something, they always get through it no matter what. So you're believing in them going through this, Itachi asks. That small smile. Well, they never let me down so far. But it's gonna be rather hectic out there. Promise me that you won't get yourself in any stupid situation. I should be the one saying that to you, said Itachi. Well, you can bring it back around. Where's Sesame? She should be here at any moment. As Itachi finished saying that, Sesame came out. As she was fully dressed, ready for war it seems. You're both here, she said. As Itachi gave her a small smile. I wanted to see you before you made your way off. As she looked towards him. Come on, don't be like this. It's not like this is a goodbye. If you do that, then things don't work out so good. Mom was already being a bit hysterical. Not you too. As Itachi gave her a small smile. As he came forward and poked her on the forehead like he always did, she rubbed her forehead as she sent a small glare his way. Be safe. As he did the same to Sasuke. Don't worry, I'll watch out for the brat, said Sesame. As Sasuke turned towards her. I should be the one saying that to you, he said. Well, at least Big Brother Itachi know who's the brat in this case, she said. Yeah, he does. Don't you, Itachi? Asked Sasuke. Itachi simply smiled their antics. Although Sesame frowned a bit, she never got to speak Naruto. The time just flew by so quickly. Preparations for war, he was always busy, and now this. Meanwhile, Mom, said Katsumi. Yes, honey? Is everything going to be okay? You have faith in your brothers and your father, right? Yeah, of course. Then everything's going to be okay, said Kushina, as she placed her both hands in front of her heart. Everything was going to be okay, she thought to herself. The village was being protected by the few Anbus that remained, and the few shinobis that were in the village. And not to mention the police force. Although, some of the Uchihas were going to be led out by Fukaku to enter in the war. They will be needed after all. Shinobis had already been split up. The garrison were already created, and the points were there. Naruto and Minma won't be a part of any special division, as Minato had told her about what was going on. They were two of Konoha's most heavy hitters. They will be the support team for the teams that were going to be engaged in the war. She just prayed that her two boys came out of this okay and alive. She prayed to whatever kami that could hear her. They didn't start this. The Stone and Kumo did. It was their fault. Meanwhile, at the sand, Gaara stood right at the border, standing on the crunchy sand under his feet. There was a force of roughly 500 ninjas behind him. The rest of his forces were spread out to guard certain areas of the sand, and not to mention they were already being put towards the battlefield. Konoha and sand ninjas work well together, so there wasn't much hassle there. As Gaara stood there, war was coming for them all, and none of them could stop that. His sister stepped up beside him. Gaara, she said, "You okay?" He looked towards her. "I'm fine," he said. "You look kind of concerned," she said. "It doesn't matter which side wins," said Gaara. "They will all come out with losses." "Yeah, but let's just hope that we have less losses than this," said Temari, as she looked towards her brother with a smile. Ever since his battle with Naruto a long time ago, he has changed a lot, and he was now the proud leader of the sand that everyone loved. She was thankful to Naruto. Really thankful back then. She remembered the co-op mission of the sand between them and the Leaf. She had been on that mission personally. One thing had led to another. Well, it was a fun night, but it wasn't anything romantic. It was just the both of them celebrating the mission complete. Although he had been a bit cold, well, his actions and certain gestures, the way he spoke as well. But she still remembered when he had saved her life in the Chunin exams, when the chaos had erupted and she almost died. He was a good person, but he can be a bit cold and a bit heartless towards his enemies. Well, at least the sand was not Konoha enemies. She glanced back towards the 500 ninjas behind her. Gaara was here, and he could be counted for a lot of these men. After all, they stood at the edge of the desert, and in the sand Gaara would crush them all. She was sure that the Kumo ninjas were not stupid enough to attack them right on their home field. So what were they thinking as they were heading past the sand? They could not pass without being stopped by them. They wish that the sand was not in the game, so they could head straight towards Konoha and there would be nothing blocking them. But Gaara would be aiding the Hokage in this, because if Konoha fall, his village was next. And, well, the losses will be tremendous. Meanwhile, that was going on as the Raikage was sitting down to himself. There was a map in front of him. Everything was going perfectly so far. His assistant entered the room, as Moby gave him the note as he opened it rather quickly. The daimyo had been moved to a secure place, just in case. When this was over, they still need their economy to boom, as they couldn't afford for it to collapse. As Darui entered the room, "Sir, the 2,000 strong is about to approach our target. They only have 500 with them. It's because they have the Kazekage, and they're in their home turf. Samui has already given specific instructions on what to do. We can't be taking heavy hits in the beginning. That would lead to a downfall down into the end. The commanders were already picked, and Samui was in charge of that 2,000 strong. Now to see how it all played out, as he moved towards the main base head, with the Sentry ninjas inside. Meanwhile that was going on, Samui and the others were making their way, as they finally broke the tree line. It was then that they saw it as they came towards the rocky crops. Gaara stood there, his arms were folded across his chest. Standing behind him was a few hundred ninjas, smaller than your 2,000. Huh. Seems that the Kazekage overestimated himself. One of the Kumo ninjas said, "Do not break line," said Samui. "Remember, in the desert he's a lot more powerful than he looks. It doesn't matter, we will crush him." She could not break their morale. She said nothing about that, as they made their way, as Samui came to a stop. "This would be a lot easier if you fell back and allow us to pass through towards the Hidden Leaf village." "I'm afraid I can't allow you to do that," said Gaara. "And I see there's no chance of you listening to reason and going back to your home." "I'm afraid not," she said. "Well then, there's only one way." "That is it," she said, as she placed her hand behind her and gave the signal, and it all broke loose. Her ninjas in the front lines flashed through hand sign as they spew water from their mouths. It was a massive tidal wave that rushed towards Gaara and his forces. The water was electrified. They knew that Gaara had a weakness when it comes towards water dampening the sand. Gaara forces to move forward as a few of them went through hands and slammed their hand down. A massive wall was erupted as the electrified water slammed into it. It did not break through though, until one ninja stepped forward. The remaining ninjas placed a hand on his back as he felt the surge of chakra. "Collaboration jutsu, water, lightning, drilling surface," he said. The water in front of them did not just go damp, it started to spin. The ninjas behind the sand quickly moved as it drilled right through the wall and started to slam into their forces. Gaara raised his hand as a massive wall of sand erupted. Through that wall, a hand with strange markings over it made from the sand, came dropping down on the enemy as chaos started. The first battle of the war. Meanwhile, the sand has been engaged at Inoichi as he turned towards the Hokage. Well, he wasn't exactly looking at him. After all, he had something over his head as he was connected towards the Yamanakas there. A few Yamanakas had been spread so they could get information back in front. Meanwhile, Snatty, Sakura and a few other medics were currently at the medical station. As Snatty looked towards, nothing coming. Everything was peaceful at the moment. "Snatty-sama." As Snatty turned towards Sakura, "You look troubled." "Things might look calm right now, but it won't last," said Snatty. "Meanwhile, it seems they came more prepared than we thought," said Shikaku. "We need Gaara to take down those 2,000, but at the rate that things are going, he will have more heavy loss on his side before he could take them all out. And his forces already searched things. What do you suggest?" asked Minato. "If Kakashi's team was able to rendezvous with Gaara forces, they could make their way straight towards the opening that Kumo has provided. But first, they have to deal with those 2,000 ninjas. How long will they take?" "Roughly an hour." Minato turned his head as he looked towards Naruto. Moments later, as Gaara was currently talking towards Inoichi. "Fall back," said Gaara. "Yes. We're gonna be sending the heavy hitters out there, so you guys can capture more ground before Kumo push you back in your village. Kakashi Company will be linking up with you. That should be enough. But tell your forces to move back. Buy them some cover." "Understood," said Gaara. Back on the field, the sand came up like a tsunami. The ninjas with the water style came forward once again, but Samui told them to fall back, as the sand wasn't attacking them. She watched as it was being used as a diversion. "They're fleeing." She heard the voice from her supporters. "Cowards. No, they're trying to lure us into the sand, so their Kazekage could pick us off one by one. How stupid does he think we are?" But Samui felt something off. Something was wrong. Meanwhile, Gaara watched as a lion with blue fur finally arrived in front of him. The lion gave him a nod. "What's going on?" said Temari. As she watches the lion, she felt a surge of chakra, and there was a poof. The sand wall then dropped down as the Kumo ninjas got themselves ready again. But when the smoke cleared away, they saw him, black cloak, with his crimson armor over it, with the black stripes running down, black pants, his long hair, flowing freely behind him. Samui cursed. They were letting him out so early. She didn't expect this. If he was able to take down their company, they would get a straight beeline to conquer more destinations to move towards Kumo. Something that she couldn't allow. Damn it, she cursed herself. This was not what she expected. Meanwhile, a chuckle could be heard as Kabuto looked up. Seems like things are really getting interesting. But guys, be in subscribe right here. If you want the next part, do like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But I'm off now. See you guys soon. Peace.